Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
Our guest today is one of the South Bay's go-to quarterback developers, born and raised in Compton, a former Cal Poly San Luis Obispo quarterback, and a coach who's worked with top-tier talent like Madden Iamaleava, Chris Fields, Wyatt Becker, and multiple Southern California standouts, now playing at the next level. He's lived the position, coached it, and continues to shape the next wave of quarterbacks in the Southern California area. Please welcome Chris Brown to South Bay Sports Radio.
Man, thank you for having me. It's a blessing to be here.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much. We are going to start with your background. You've been with quarterbacks basically your entire life, playing since the age of 5. How hard is it to really evaluate quarterback talent at 8, 10, or 12 years old without overreacting to arm strength or size?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to this position, you can kind of tell already at a young age who kind of has like a natural ability of just throwing the football. And, I've heard this saying of like, if you just want to see if they can throw a ball, put just an object in their hand, maybe like a water bottle, and just see how they throw the ball or just their natural throwing mechanics. And you'll be able to kind of get a glimpse of like, in a couple years, let's see where this can go. But I mean, it just kind of takes a lot of focus and really attention to detail and seeing how that person can retain information and how fast they can retain it. And then also showing that they can, put it out there for you to see, right? I think at 8 years old, 9 years old, these kids are still doing multiple sports and, they're involved in so many things and they probably want to play other positions too. So it is fun to kind of just throw them at the quarterback position just to kind of see their leadership ability and, see some of that stand out. But I think when you turn like 11 or 12 is when you really start to grasp information and that muscle memory starts to kick in and, they're more attentive to the process. And then that's when you can start to really evaluate if this athlete can really play this position or not, right? And then obviously high school and then in college is when you start to exploit like, man, I could tell you've been doing this since 11 or 12 or 8 years old, right?
We're playing flag football when I was in elementary school. And I could throw the ball. I was a baseball player, and I told the coach, Coach, I want to play quarterback. He goes, all right, cool. We'll put you in for a playing practice. And me being me, never having gotten under center, nothing like that. I waited until my receiver was all the way at the top of his route, and I threw a bomb, and it was intercepted. He goes, nope, not happening. You're out. And I was like, but Coach, you only gave me one try. He's like, yeah, but hit the guy over the middle. Don't hit the guy on the flat. Don't wait
Right.
for the play to develop before you hit him. So.
Right.
I
Right.
think back to that and I kind of chuckle at it because it's such an intriguing position from every aspect, but it's so difficult that even Kirk Cousins is breaking it down. He's like, I go through my progressions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like high safety, strong safety, 2 safety sets. Like, what do I do? Simplify
Right.
it, make it easy. Not necessarily easy, but simplify it. Make the quick
For
read.
sure.
Make something that's going to work. Don't wait until all your progressions are done and then have to bail out. So, all right. Moving on. In Southern California, especially the South Bay, kids grow up playing multiple sports. How important is it to have a multi-sport background when you're developing quarterbacks?
I mean, I think it's very important. I think, just playing one sport, sometimes it can be quick to kind of give you this burnout feeling, right? Growing up for me, I played baseball, tennis. I was actually really good at tennis. I played in the Arthur Ashe program in the city of Carson and actually had an opportunity to go pro in tennis. That was actually, I actually fell in love with that sport. Me being from Compton and, my parents did the best they could with me and my brother as well. I think the hardest part was just the traveling in tennis, right? Like you can be in Calabasas one day and be in North Orange County the next day in a tournament. But I played that, baseball, ran track my entire life. That was a big key and part of my game was being able to run, know how to run. And it kind of just adds diversity to your play, right? You think about tennis, being able to change direction laterally, exploding out of one stance into another position to attack the ball, right? I carried that into my game as a player, being in the pocket, being able to maneuver quickly out of the pocket. And then when it's time to take off and run, that's when that track background came in, right? When I knew I needed to have a quick turnover or open up my stride to really break away from the defense. It shows that, diversity in my game, right? So I think it's important just so that one, they don't get burnt out, and two, they can just add different elements to their game. And then it also shows a different level of appreciation to the game, right? I think in tennis, it's this idea of it just being you out there, right? Unless you're playing doubles, but you have this idea of just being out there by yourself, but you learn how to lose and you learn how to win, right? And then at the quarterback position, you take that credibility or that, I guess, that sense of ownership when your team does lose or when your team does win, you know how to manage that moving forward, right? So I encourage all of my guys to, track, get involved in track. And as this message gets out there, I'm hoping that people are running track at least 1 or 2 years in their high school career if they didn't do it in the youth stage, just to get them the understanding of the form, the technique, and how to get some wind underneath you. But just to diversify your sports portfolio, just so that you have some credibility, and it also helps your recruitment as well.
You've worked with quarterbacks who went on to places like Notre Dame. You've had quarterbacks at Warren High School, Maricosta, King Drew, Orange Lutheran, and so many others. At what point do you usually see this kid has next level traits starting to show?
I think it just varies, right? I think when you know, right? Like I said, there are some kids that they show up and you just know, like, man, you have the ability to do this at the next level, right? And I know you mentioned Maddie Yamaleava earlier, right? I walked into the program at Warren High School. Kevin Pearson was the head coach at the time, and as well as the offensive coordinator. And I was just assisting him. I was the quarterback coach there. I knew that Madden was working with a group of 3D QB and his family, and they gave me an opportunity. They embraced me as a guy just to come in and just help where it was needed, and also just to provide my experience when we were in those high school settings, right? And me and him built our own relationship in regards to, I guess, just showing him what I know, and then kind of helping him understand, little things and whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, that kid already had natural ability to play this game. I mean, his brother, obviously, you see him at UCLA doing great things, and I wish nothing but the best for that family. But, there are certain people you can just see they have that it factor immediately. The ones that you need to take some time on, you can see little glimpses and in their game. Usually you see that in the off season, right? How quickly can you retain this information? So if they come to me in December and we're setting the program, when they get to me in January and we're starting that development program, when I'm showing up to that next session, everything we worked on in the previous session, are we still going over that? Is that taking time? Like, are we still on the same stage? Have we pressed forward? Usually right there is when you can tell, okay, he's going to struggle at this in the future, or you know what, he's going to be okay. Right. It's just going to take him being in the right setting because, as you know, in this position, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. And you got to be able to pick up information quickly and then show that, you can perform in those moments when they're counting on you most. So I think you're able to really tell I offer 12 sessions, 6 sessions. And, really within the first couple of sessions, you can tell if somebody just has that natural ability to do this and play it at a high level. It's just going to come with repetition and breaking bad habits and building good ones.
There you go. Bad habits are the worst to break, but building those good ones.
Yeah.
Definitely something. A lot of families you work with come from different economic backgrounds. How do you help low-income families navigate training, exposure, and opportunity without burning them out financially?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is when I started training. I told my wife that I wanted to get into actually fully developing quarterbacks and doing that full time. It was because I knew that being in SoCal and being in this market, that it's expensive. Like I said, you're training the most important position on the field. So I get that, right? There's a certain level of time, right? To me, it's not about money. It's about the time that you're putting into it. And I think you just have to have a level of awareness, and it also has to be in you. And my dad's a pastor. He's always talked about what matters, and what matters for us is giving, right? So yes, I have prices and packages that I offer, but that's just to make sure I have a roof over my head, my child has a place to sleep and something to eat. But at the end of the day, I'm extremely flexible with my clients and the people that come and work with me. I make sure they know that it's not about the dollar. It's about, look, do what you can, But if you're showing me that this is really what you want to do and you're willing to put the work in, I'm going to give you that same amount of energy. Just because you may be paying less than half of what somebody else is paying doesn't mean that you don't deserve the same amount of energy and effort from me as a trainer or a developer. So I make for sure that, it may not be multiple times in a week, maybe once, maybe twice a week that we may do training, but I still make myself available because I know what it's like to be able to, or to not be able to, have the money to pay for that specific training that is needed in order for you to even get ahead or be able to compete with somebody who's doing this 2, 3 times a week consistently throughout the year. So it's a non-negotiable for me. I have to create ways. I have to find ways to help other people who can't really come up with the money or have the financial situation to do this. It's part of who I am.
I appreciate that, especially coming from,
Mm.
all sorts of backgrounds, knowing where people are and understanding that, while there is the upper echelon of the financial bracket, there's also that lower echelon where it's tough. It's like, all right, cool. Well, we're skating on thin ice until payday, and payday's, a week and a half away. So,
Right,
I
right,
appreciate
right.
that very much coming from my standpoint. The quarterback position has changed a lot over the last 30, 40, 50 years, even the last 10 to 15. What do you value most in a modern quarterback today, whether it be decision making, mobility, leadership, arm talent, and how do you teach that?
Well, I think, in order for you to be elite at this position, confidence to me is just that's like it's up there, right? Being able as like probably the top of the pyramid and that's debatable, right? This is just my opinion, but for me, you have to have a certain level of confidence. What goes into that confidence is how prepared you are, right? It kind of just rolls into it, right? How well do you prepare? And at the end of the day, if I know that I got a game on Friday and the coach is giving the game plan and giving the lesson plan in regards to how we're going to attack this team, the defensive coverages that they're coming out in, and they're primarily in a one high or two high defense. Like, in order for me to play confident, I have to watch hours of film just to already run through those looks in my head so that when I get to game day, it's already slowing down, right? I have to spend time with my offensive coordinator to understand what the game plan is so that I can start drawing up those looks, drawing up our offensive scheme versus those looks when game time comes. I'm not even thinking anymore. I'm just able to kind of react because I've seen it before, right? So confidence is a big thing for me. I think that leads the way, and how you prepare yourself is going to show how confident you are on the field, and it's going to display in those moments where it matters most, right? It's fourth down. You're on the 20. This is really the last play of the game, and this isn't even to win the game. This is just to get you guys into overtime to be able to actually win the game, right? Not folding in that moment, right? So confidence is big. Leadership is a second thing. It can't be forced. It has to be natural. And I think we all know what like a natural leader is, right? He shows it in their play as well as their ability. People want to gravitate towards you as a quarterback. They can feel that infectious energy around you. It creates a synergy between the team that's just contagious. So that leadership is another one. And then I'd say the last thing that um a quarterback need is just like the mentality, right? I preach some of my pillars are mental, physical, and spiritual. All those have to be aligned in order for you to be successful on the field. That mental aspect is not just X's and O's. It's how you overcome those losses. It's how you're able to take the criticism, how you're able to take the finger pointing when the team loses because it's your fault. You're the quarterback, and accepting of that. And how fast can bounce back from that interception or the 3 interceptions that you threw in that game? Like how fast can you get back to the drawing board and find ways to get better and actually get better in the next game? So I'd say those three are like the main, I guess attributes needed to be elite at this position.
You've coached guys or worked with them like Madden Ameliava, Chris Fields, Uli Ale, Caden Jones, Jeremiah Cavlin, Wyatt Becker, Liam Meeker. What separates
Mhm,
kids who keep climbing from the ones who stall out? How
mhm.
is it the work ethic? Is it the preparation? What do you see in the guys that either A, make it to the next level and are competitive at that level, or the guys that get those offers but aren't able to sustain at the next level?
I mean, it's a thin line between like having that want to and just being willing to work, consistently. I mean, you have to have this persistent mindset of like being committed to the process. I mean, because this position, it's grueling. I mean, you're going to have some highs, but sometimes you're going to have way more lows than you have highs. And those are the discouraging factors for a lot of kids that want to play this position, right? Controlling what you can control is what I tell all my quarterbacks. Control what you can control, right? You can control bringing um, an infectious energy every day to practice, regardless of your circumstance. Everybody's going through something. That field, that football field, that 120 yards of space that is our therapeutic session for us. That's the chance to just let it all out there on the field. So bringing energy, has to be, it's a necessity, right? So I think what separates the ones that are able to keep pressing forward and the ones that kind of stall out is the ones that just, when they say that they truly want it, they're not letting anything stop them from that. Whether they were shooting for an FBS offer and they didn't get it coming out of high school, that they're like, look, I don't care. Is it JUCO? Let's do it. Is it D3? And then I overperform in the D3 and set up an opportunity for me to get picked up in the portal. You just have to have a level of want to. Look, at the end of the day, in this sport, like luck plays a part too, right? The timing of things and, people falling in and falling out of the position, whether it's due to injuries and different things like that. But just always being ready when your number is called is something that's going to keep you, pressing forward. And then I think your village matters too, right? Like the people behind you, your parents. And a lot of people don't have that dad at home or that mom at home that's able to provide that nurturing environment or that push. And I think that separates guys too, right? Someone who's telling them this isn't it, when things are, not looking good, it's time to shut it down. And you got the other family that's like, all right, you lost or you didn't win the battle. So what are you done or are we going to keep going at this? Right. So your village matters, man. I'm a strong believer in that. It takes a village.
Yeah, I follow a lot of Kobe pages, and it's, you can go back to his rookie year where they lost to the Jazz, and you can go back to him, missing threes and airballing threes, and then you can see where he went from in his career, where it was, you're not good enough and you're too small and you're too young and all this stuff, but he just continued to work and to work and to work and to prove to a lot of the doubters that it may, I remember where I came from, but where I want to be,
Yeah.
it's a lot different of a plateau that, process isn't linear. You're not going to get better like this. It's not going to work
Right.
like that. It's that constant,
Mm-hmm.
that constant marginal improvement every day, getting better, Kaizen, as the
Yeah.
Japanese say. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and that's good. I mean, and not to cut you off. I mean, a lot of the kids that I work with uniquely all have different stories of how they got to where they're at now, and they're all battling through their own adversities, right? But I'll use this kid as an example, just because I've been working with him since he was 13 or 12. His name is Jordan Malik, and he's the quarterback at Warren High School. When I got Jordan, he was 5'6", maybe. I mean, I'm probably shooting maybe 5'7" at the time. Not fast, huge feet. You can tell he was going to grow, but just like almost like a baby giraffe, almost, right? Like he just coming into his body, like learning how to move, learning how to run. When he got into, and when I say he's smart, I mean, he's going to get accepted into every school in the country more than likely. I mean, he's a 4.8 student right now. Like he's going to graduate with a 4.8, probably 4.9. I mean, the kid is a genius. But when he got into high school, he went from being 5'6", slow, and not as athletic to 6'2", like that, right? And then now he's 6'6", stepping into his senior year, right? So throughout this, he's had a PCL surgery, messed up or PCL strain. He tore his ACL throughout that way. He won the starting job, lost the starting job. So like he's had this up and down journey. Now he's in the process of being recruited. He put together some solid tape this past year, and he showed what I seen in him since day one, which is bro, it's going to be tough. The journey it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is, right? It's going to be ups and downs, and how you tackle it and how you maintain mentally, physically, and spiritually is going to be how you overcome those obstacles. And I mean, he's got, I think, 3 programs that are just waiting to come down and see him throw in the offseason. They're FBS programs, but people thought that he wouldn't be in the position he is now, right? So, and he's not the only one. Chris Fields has a story. Colin Creason has a story from jumping to school and finally finding a home that embraced him, right? Chris Fields started at Lawndale and being at Carson and settling in and leading them to a championship. So, it all circles back to the same thing, right? The village behind you, and understanding that this journey, it's going to have some ups and downs, but just keep pressing and lean on the people that's been with you the whole time.
There we go. All right. You came up in Compton, played at Dominguez, then Cal Poly in the Big Sky. How did your journey shape you into what you are today?
Oh, man, it shaped me. So my mentor, quarterback trainer, Armin Youngblood, who's worked with tons of quarterbacks. I actually was his first quarterback he ever trained. My uncle had a great relationship with him, and he reached out to him and said, "Hey, my nephew's trying to take it serious." I actually started at Orange Lutheran my freshman year. My brother was at Orange Lutheran. And then I transferred out, went to Narbonne actually for a year, and just through some situations there, not negative, just kind of like not really feeling like that was the place for me, and going to Dominguez. By the time I got to Dominguez my junior year, it took a guy like Army Youngblood, who I worked together with, created ice feet ball quarterback training with together, to kind of like, all right, look, this is what it's going to take. He kind of restructured my mindset in regards to stop thinking about what was going on in the past and focus on how can I get better today. And that mentality is what I do and what I preach to my guys today, right? As a quarterback trainer, right? But that helped me as a quarterback. So being in that type of environment, having that type of coach is really what shaped me into the player that I was, along with my parents, right? And my brother always being in my ear telling me to keep going. But it was the late nights, the early mornings that I preached to my guys that you got to do throughout your career, because if you want to do it at the next level, it's going to take time. It's a lot of hours that goes into this, blood, sweat, and tears, literally blood, sweat, and tears, strains and muscles, and that strains in your muscles that go into this thing. So that environment of going into a place where they needed a quarterback, where they were primarily running the wing T, that was like, did I want to play in that offense at the time? No, but Keith Donnerson and Coach Don, they had the history of having great guys come out of there like Richard Sherman, and a bunch of other names that's came out of that place, right? But that toughness mentality of like, you know what, you're here, get in it. This is the system. We're running it. We're going to stay true to this system, and just turn yourself into a guy. Like that's what it was like. So that mentality shaped me to be able to be accepting of it. And then also, when the time came to throw the ball, I couldn't miss, because I wanted them to know, hey, I can throw the ball too. This isn't just, I can run. And then that prepared me for the next level, being at Cal Poly, playing in that triple option offense, and then helping with the conversations of Saga Tuatelli, that's at the pass game coordinator, O-line coach at Arizona State, Aristotle Thompson, who's at Northwestern, and Coach Tim Walsh and Coach Wood. Those guys kind of believed in me to where it's like, okay, cool, we can kind of expand this offense a little bit. Let's start dumping the ball. We got guys outside, and so that environment made me who I am today, as a coach, as a player. And I think that gave me the mental fortitude to be able to, do very well at that collegiate level at Cal Poly, be blessed enough to break into some record books and put me in a position to extend my career into the NFL, even though it was short-lived. That made me who I am today and the quarterback that I was.
Chris Brown and the John Madden record books.
Yeah.
You've seen the pressure kids feel earlier and earlier, rankings, social media, camps. How do you help young quarterbacks stay grounded and not chase the hype?
A continuous conversation. I think with social media being such a big piece and helping guys get noticed, and, and these guys are constantly always on their phone. They're seeing the news feeds of, guys getting offers and guys getting stars. And you already know when January, February, March comes around, that's when invites are going out already, and, they're not getting invited. It takes somebody to just be in their ear the whole time. Hey, look, focus on your journey. Focus on you just getting better. control what you could control. I think that's just the biggest part, to be honest. Like, you just have to constantly be in these guys' ears and keeping their head on the straight and narrow. I think that's the big thing. I mean, because I can't control the way that they naturally feel. I can only control keeping their mind on the mission, which is getting better and then trying to get to the next level.
Your career at San Luis Obispo led into you getting shot with the Cowboys, then had to step away because of injury. How big was that for you to even get a chance at the next level? And how tough was it to deal with that injury, knowing that was the shot that you put in all those blood, sweat, and tears for, just to find out that injury was going to keep you from playing at the next level?
I mean, my brother wanted to play in the NFL. For me, I watched guys like Michael Vick in college being at Virginia Tech, and I just, Vince Young at Texas was, that environment, seeing the stadium packed and, that authenticity of the crowd. That's what I was like, drawn to, regardless of where I went. So the fact that by the time that I was going into my junior year or at the end of my junior year, when I realized I was actually going to be getting recruited, because coaches were talking to my coaches, is like, wait, I actually got a shot at this. And that senior year is really when I said, all right, well, I mean, if they're looking, I might as well take it up another notch and like, let me really try to step on the pedal and go after it. And to get a call on the last day of the draft and to say, look, we're gonna give you a shot, come up here and let's see what you can do. Or on the pro day to have 13 scouts come to the pro day and to see myself and my fellow teammates, but to see me do quarterback, wide receiver, and DB, like I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to give it everything I got. So to get that call and to get that opportunity and to get up there and just showcase my ability, I was content in that process, so even if I didn't have this long career, I did things that a lot of my counterparts, colleagues, or people that I'm, in the same field haven't had the opportunity to do. And I'm doing things that these kids are hoping to just get that one shot, that chance. So to have an injury that like really prevented me from, stepping on the pedal when I'm there and to play without thinking. Of course, that was tough because I started to see like, man, these guys, Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, they're coming from all over the country and I'm competing with them the same way. And, to go from a quarterback room to a wide receiver room, bouncing back and forth and to see like, man, I didn't take one rep in college at wide receiver. So for me to be, them evaluating me at this position, like I took it as a high honor of praise of like, man, like it's just a testament of all the work that I've put in and the willingness to compete. So it was tough, walking away from that. But I also was just excited because now I could add that tag to my name, regardless of how long it was. And, use that as motivation for the guys coming after me to help them get there and keep pressing through that injury, because I could have stretched it further. I could have been in Detroit, could have been in Kansas City, but I had to make the decision to say, you know what, I need a break from this to figure out who I am outside of this game so that I can be able to provide more back to the game.
The old Roberto Clemente, do something for somebody after you. I love that.
Right. Yeah.
When you look at the quarterbacks you've coached, from Colin Creason at Los Al to Keenan Jackson, Elijah Juarez, and Brant Wilson in Texas, which lessons show up to you over and over?
It's a good question. I mean, I think, the three words that I was taught, that I still say to this day, that Coach Youngblood taught me, was eyes, feet, ball, right? How good are you with your eyes? Like, you have to deceive. We have to be the art of deception at this position, right? The defense is getting more complex. So being able to constantly be preaching and breathing and talking about your eyes, pulling guys one way, being quicker with getting your eyes to a certain spot so that you can be able to get the ball out on time, right? So your eyes are the driving factor. What you see is what's going to help you get the ball in the right direction, right? And then preaching on that feet, those lessons about feet. Like, it doesn't stop your footwork. It does not stop. If your feet are in the right position to throw the ball, you're not going to be able to be as accurate all the time, right? So, constantly talking about feet and seeing these guys be successful at it is because they're great with their eyes, they're great with their feet. And because they're great with their eyes, they're great with their feet, they're able to deliver a good ball, right? So in that order, it's not ball, feet, eyes, or feet, eyes, ball, right? It has to be eyes, feet, ball, because if you don't see it, I mean, you're not going to make that throw 10 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, right? So I think that's a lesson that I'm constantly teaching because of what it was taught to me, and I've seen what it's done. And just by studying the game, seeing guys do it at the next level, that's what it starts with. Eyes, feet, ball, and training those all throughout the off season. That's the constant lesson everywhere I go. It's okay, cool. The developmental program is about your eyes, it's about getting better in that area, having elite feet, and then putting yourself in a position to deliver a good ball, right? Because not everybody has a strong arm. Not everybody's able to, but if your eyes are there quick enough and you can get your feet there quick enough, and as long as you're on time, that ball will get there and it'll make it look like your arm is strong, right? So, yeah, I think that's the lesson. Those are the continuous lessons for me that I'm preaching.
One of the things that I picked up over listening to either local talk radio or even watching guys in the pros was you've got Matthew Stafford with the Rams. And then even recently I saw Mahomes do it too, where they're looking one way and they're throwing to another way. That's not something that you can teach, but how hard is it for you to say, look, these guys have been practicing this continuously. And while, yes, that is something that I don't see not being a possibility in the future, how hard is it to say to the kids that you're training, like, just work on the fundamentals first, and then we'll get to the fancy stuff later?
Right. I mean, it's tough. I'd say the reason why it's tough for me is because I'm in this field where, there are a lot of, you can go on YouTube and try to search up ways to, be better at this position, right? And then there's also people on that's in this field that spread their programs across Instagram based off what they see Mahomes and them doing and saying, hey, I can teach you this. And those guys come to the session saying, hey, I want to learn how to, change my arm angle and throw, look this way and throw the other way. And I say, well, who was the person that you found that on? Shoot them a DM and try to, get with them, because maybe I'm not for you, right? I try to let them know that, like, look, they're not doing that every single play, right? There's some freestyle from time to time. There's some loose nuances. I mean, there's a play in college against Fresno State when Derek Carr was at Fresno State. I was at Cal Poly. We played against them, and I was evading a tackle. Devontae Adams was on that team as well. I'm evading a tackle, and one of my running backs was coming out the backfield. He pushed out in front of me, and I ended up switching the ball to my left hand and extending to that right. That being able to improvise, right? That's not taught. That's just having the ability to learn how to improvise. You got to kind of be in you, right? Again, I said I played baseball, so like, being able to be quick on my feet and get the ball out and, use my glove to toss the ball out from time to time. That was just improvising in those situations. So, I try to be honest with these guys and say, cool, we can do fun drills every now and then. I like to have some fun drills, which I think that's good. But like, look, I'm very honest. Like, look, cool. If you can do it, good. But we got to get this down first. Let's lay the groundwork. You trying to put frames up and you don't even have the pavement up yet, right? So I think, or more or less, you trying to add, tech windows to a wall that doesn't have. There's no walls up, right? So I think it's very important to, breathe and preach foundation as much as possible to these kids so they can know the realistic part of this game. But, to see Stafford do stuff like that in Mahomes, like, man, it just shows like, hey, man, that's talent. It's talent.
Because I've seen Mahomes throw left-handed one play. I forget when it was a couple years ago, but I even looked it up. I said, does Patrick Mahomes throw left-handed? And then, just last week, Brock Purdy makes this, they call it to Michael Jordan, but I'm like, it's like a Derek Jeter jump pass. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
You're in the pocket. You got to find your guys. And he's not tall by any means, maybe 5'11", 6'1" at the most. But he makes that read. He completes the pass. Niners get a touchdown. And there we go. So, yeah, it's interesting because, with my kids, that it's like, Dad, I want to learn this. All right, well, let's focus on, I don't focus on hitting a home run. Get on base.
Right.
Well, yeah, home runs are sexy. Great. Home runs are great. Right. But this is a team game. This is what we're focused on. We're focused on getting better as a team, not hitting the ball out of the park and taking the parade around the bases.
Right. For sure.
You've been with Carson's Chris Fields and Maricosa's Liam Meeker for a while now. When you think back to where they were when you first started working with them and compare it to what we saw this season, what's changed the most in their games and from them as quarterbacks as well?
Yeah. So Liam Meeker, he was actually referred to me by Cassius Pierce. He was the office coordinator this past year at Maricosta, and he has his own gym, and he referred him to me, and I had a chance to kind of come out, see him throw, and then I watched his game based off of the offense that they were in, and it was a very aggressive way of playing ball. Right? It's like, look, I don't see it open in those first couple of seconds, and I'm out of here. And then he's naturally strong. I mean, I think he won. I'm not, no, not think he did win this year in the off season, the longest ball competition. I think it was at the Chargers event, and I think some of the top quarterbacks were there as well in his class, and he threw the furthest out of all of them. Right, so he's just a naturally strong person. Right, so being able to kind of help him, utilize his arm strength and kind of hone it in to kind of build some accuracy within where he's placing the ball and how to use his legs properly, putting his feet into the ground, separating his stance, because like I said, he has this urgency of like, all right, I don't like it. I know that they're not going to be able to stop me when I take off because I'm running downhill like a freight train. Being able to slow him down for a second, get him to use his legs, use his arms. I think that kind of just transcended his game, because now you look at his tape from the previous year to this year, and I think it's a kudos to what Coach Cash has done in that offense. But he's spreading that ball across the field, making the out throws, deep out throws that coaches want to see, on the move throws, being able to extend the throws, down the field while taking those hits, and opposed to usually just taking off and missing those shots. I think that helped them be explosive as an offense. I was super excited to see him put everything that we worked in that offseason to play, and I'm excited for what comes next for him, because like I said, he has a couple Ivy League offers, and with coaches moving around, I'm sure he's going to land into the right spot. But that's Liam. I'm super excited about him. Chris Fields, man, it's funny because we talk about guys like Ryan Rakowski, right? The height, the size, right? I talked to one, I'm not going to say who he was, but I'm talking to one FBS coach. And he mentioned, showed him his tape, he got a chance to see him throw in person, and like, we're trying to move away from this height and this size of the quarterbacks. And, to a certain, degree, I get where you're coming from that standpoint. But I get that when you have, an offensive lineman where across the board you're averaging 6'6", 6'7" across the board, right? Which that's only happening in a certain amount of conferences, right? Do I think that he can play in those conferences? Absolutely, right? But based off the realistic part of like the recruiting game, I have an idea of where I feel like he's going to end up going, or where he can be efficient and effective in those systems, and have a coach that stand behind him. And I think this year was the year he was actually able to show that, right? I think part of his game was similar to Liam's, where he can take off and use his legs. He was really fast, and he can lift a house. I mean, I don't know if you've seen him in the weight room. He comes from a strong bloodline of like, weightlifter, power lifters. If you look up Chris Fields' background, I mean, it's a reason why he's running through guys and pulling guys into the end zone. But I think, again, getting him to just calm down, put his feet into the pocket, and then putting himself in a position to not just evade and run, but evade and keep his eyes downfield to extend plays. I think we were able to really help him, shape that game, tighten those little areas of his game up, and then it allowed him to showcase it this year. And then he had a great offensive coordinator that staff in general were able to kind of open up the playbook a little bit more and showcase his ability. So, I think the offseason program with both of them, it showed to be effective. Like I said, every quarterback is different, but those two in particular, they both have the ability to be on the ground and be in the air. And I think when you have that natural ability, i.e. I'm that person where I'm like, I can go and I can let it go. It takes someone to say, hey, you're fine. You've been in this moment before. You've had the snaps. Let's relax, create space with your feet, keep your eyes down, feel pressure. Don't see it, feel pressure, and then make the best situation based off the circumstance, right? Down in distance, right? So their IQ just kind of got better as the games go on. They naturally had that. Chris was a natural quarterback. Like I said, he came in with that. I was just sharpening the tools and adding some to his toolbox. Same with Liam. So excited for him, because recruiting is starting to ramp up, especially after his performance from this past year. Extremely excited for him. And they both can play this at the next level. FCS, FBS, and I do think, there are some FCS schools that's been calling me about Chris Fields as well as Liam. So we'll see where they end up.
Beautiful. I love to hear that. Especially Liam played both
Mhm.
ways on the both sides of the ball, so that was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
In the South Bay specifically, what do you think makes the local football culture unique compared to other parts of Southern California?
Well, I think, being in SoCal, I think everyone already knows, right? It's two major leagues, right? You got Trinity League and then you got St. Gabriel Valley League. Now, in regards to like playing on that national level, right? And the irony in that is a lot of these kids that are going to those schools are coming from the South Bay, the inner city, from Torrance, from Compton, from Inglewood, from Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach. Like they are coming from this area, the city of Carson. So, I think what makes it unique is we know that there is a high level of talent here, regardless of the level of competition that they're putting the scale on, right? I think the type of players that they are, just from what I'm seeing, it's a level of discipline still. You can tell that the game is fun to them still, and it's probably because there's not a lot of the pressure isn't the same, right? You attend Modern Day, you feel like you have to be this way for a certain reason. And it's like you can just see the level of fun in the game. And I feel like it's getting coached that way as well. I'm a big believer still of, these guys playing in these programs in the city section um, in the South Bay. And I'm hoping that we can continue to highlight these young men and show that, look, you don't have to go to, these schools in the Trinity League to find guys that can play at the next level. They're here, right, in the South Bay, and I see it every day, all throughout the off season. I think it just takes the right amount of people to highlight them. Guys like yourself to continue to just keep highlighting these programs and highlighting these kids to get them to that next level. So yeah, I mean it's exciting to see the growth and to kind of see that turnaround starting to happen again.
That was one of the biggest reasons that I created this platform, was because I felt the South Bay was massively overlooked. I went to school with guys that got recruited by UCLA, Stanford, USC,
Mm,
but at the same time, now it's starting to ramp up. You've got guys from Lusinger getting rides to Cal Poly, to, Samuel
right,
Moala is going to Texas A&M. Ryan Rakowski
right,
has a number of offers, and now
right.
some of his teammates are getting noticed. And before,
Hmm.
it was, PV's really far out there. Petros
Right.
went to USC and went on to Cal, but you didn't hear about that a lot, and now you're starting to hear about a lot. But I'm also paying attention a lot more than I was back then. And the way that recruiting is done these days is a lot different than it was done when you or I were in school. So it's
Hmm.
definitely goes to show that things have changed a lot. Last one. When a young quarterback finishes working with you, what do you hope people say about him, not just as a quarterback, but as a person?
Yeah, you know, I, I'm hoping that when they look at a quarterback that I've worked with, whether it was for a day, 2 weeks, a month, or multiple years at a time, that they see a change in the type of person that they are, right? I'm big on getting an understanding of the person and then the actual position, of the player that's playing the position, right? I'm big on that. So I'm hoping that they're able to say that, you know, this kid is, let's put all of his playing ability to the side. He comes in, he presents himself well with great posture, right? His ability to open up his mouth and speak, and he's very good at listening, retaining information, right? And then just the way that they present themselves, right? You can just see a shift in presentation. And then the overall playability is that you just see a confident player. They're not trying to play like anybody else. They're not comparing their game to anybody else consistently. They're showing that, look, I understand that this is how I throw, this is how I maneuver, this is how I play. And I want you to show that this is why I'm still recruitable, because you told me that I needed to get the ball out on time. I'm doing that, right? Yeah, you wanted me to stretch the film. My film shows that. You wanted to see my leadership capabilities. I shows that. You wanted to see me win games. I'm doing that, right? So just a guy that is able to show that they've matured on the field and off the field, and you can just tell, like, man, the way he sets up in the pocket, the way he's maneuvering outside of the pocket, I can tell he's worked with Coach CB because of the way how calm he looks, his presence. how controlled he looks. And I'm constantly working on that, right? That's something that if you come out to a session and you get a chance to kind of see me working with these guys, you'll get a chance to see the difference and why there's value in these sessions, because I'm not letting them breathe. They are being held to the same standard as if they were on Friday nights, right? We're recreating that game experience every single time, and they'll be able to see that in the athlete that they're recruiting. So, I think, in a long but short answer, I would say that right there, right? Seeing the maturity on and off the field and, presenting well.
There we go. That was beautiful. I will be making it
Mhm.
out to a quarterback session of yours soon. I certainly did
Let's make
want
it
to.
happen.
All right,
Let's make it happen.
we're gonna transfer into rapid fire. That wraps the serious part of this episode. Rapid fire, 5
Mhm.
questions. Chris Brown on the spot. Top
Mhm.
5 favorite football players of all time.
Mike Vick, hands down. Warren Moon, somebody I studied. Vince Young, especially when he was at Texas. I'm a Titans fan too. So, like I said, Lamar Jackson, somebody that just, a little bit closer to me in age, and just the way he shaped his game, stayed true to himself as a quarterback, and saying, I'm playing QB, and, take it or leave it. And then Cam Newton, the personality, the ability to play aggressive, play within his size, and, I dare you to stop me mentality, and, creating that threat on the field. So those will be my 5. And there's a lot of other guys, but those are my top 5.
Quarterback
I
with
actually have a
linebacker with
right, right. It's funny. Like, I was just putting things away, and I had a buddy that created his company is called Legendary Lane, and he created a custom jacket for my business, and it had like all of the guys that, like, I actually was a huge fan of, and that are my favorite quarterbacks on here, right? So, I mean, you still see Jalen Hurts just because I'm a fan of his game, but
Steve
it's
McNair.
no, yeah, Steve McNair's on there, right? So, just to highlight that, those are my guys.
There we go. All right, your least favorite NFL franchise.
Man, this one's tough. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and I don't want to create no bad blood with any franchise, because I'm hoping that my guys are getting drafted to these programs one day. But I would say anybody else in the AFC conference that's not the Titans, right? So, I'm hoping we turn this thing around, and we're able to start being on top of this conference, this division.
What pulled you to be a Titans fan?
So my uncle, Bobby Lyles, actually played for the Oilers back in the day. And then as they transitioned over into the Tennessee Titans, my dad just kind of always was rooting for them. And next thing you know, I just kind of got fit into that mode. And like I said, it was Steve McNair. I just
Eddie
developed my
George.
own relationship with the Titans. Like I said, Warren Moon, the first African-American quarterback to go and do it. And that's somebody that I studied. It's like, yeah, I'm standing for that, especially being an African-American quarterback, where at the time there was little to none, right, in the league, and seeing these guys pave the way. That's what made me, go with a team like the Titans, regardless of how bad we're struggling right now.
All good. Cam Ward, the future's bright in Cam Ward, if I can say
Come
so,
on.
after watching those highlights against the Niners last week. All right.
Yeah.
Top 3 football movies.
Ooh, I love this question right here. So, these are my movies. So everyone has their opinions. Obviously, remember the Titans, right? Just the way it shows discipline, trust, busting through overcoming adversity, brotherhood. There's so many, the reality of overcoming adversity, and I guess holding each other accountable. That's a big one, right? Remember the Titans. The Replacements, man, I used to watch that movie with my dad all the time. That is just the funny moments in that movie, right? Is just like, it's hilarious. Like, just one of my favorite movies to watch, like, to be able to have some fun while still watching some competitiveness in the nature of it, right? But at the same time, like, that movie kind of shows the underdog story, and I felt like I was an underdog in a lot of my time as a player. So that also makes me gravitate to that movie, right? The Replacements. I love that movie. And then The Little Giants, like, how can you not love that movie, right? Again, another underdog story. I'm team underdog all the time, but just to be a young kid playing on a team like that with a bunch of other guys, and I love that movie. So those are my 3.
Those are 3 great picks. The one thing that had me laughing while you were going through the Replacements was the episode I just dropped today with Dr. Paula Rodas of the CIF.
Okay.
She talks about that too. She's like, the Replacements, the prison scene, it's,
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin's I Will Survive. But the one scene that popped into my mind was
Uh,
Gene Hackman's
uh,
talking to the offensive coordinator, and they're talking about the kicker. He's like, he's Wiley.
yes,
He's what? He's Whitey? No, he's Wiley.
he's
Wiley.
white.
And so that got me. And then of course the Little Giants. I mean, I grew up in that era, but the program to me is, if there's an upper echelon, it's like the program, Training Day, and
Yeah,
then there's a little like there's so many football movies out there,
yeah,
and it's hard for me because I love, it's baseball, football, hockey for me, but it's so hard
right,
for me
right.
to pick. Like I put people on the spot on this show.
Yeah,
Let's go. So
I
yeah, no,
love it.
those are three great ones, and I'm really happy that my kids have at least seen Little Giants. I haven't exposed them to the replacements yet, or not the replacements,
Right, you're right.
but also, well, I
Right,
think I turned it on
right.
last week, and it was the scene where the cheerleaders are kind of getting
Yeah.
down, and it's like, oh man. But then,
Classic scene though. A
yeah,
classic scene.
it's so good. She just slapped her ass. Like, oh man. All right, a biopic is being made about Chris Brown. Who plays you?
Man, this is a good question too. I would say it's a couple in my mind, but Wood Harris, I would say, is somebody that I think would portray me fairly well. I don't know, as a young, who would play me at the young age. I could probably go through a bunch of different people, but Wood Harris is somebody that I think his versatility as an actor, the roles that he's played, obviously being in the Remember the Titans, and you felt like, man, that strong side, like, that,
Left side.
what I'm saying? Like you actually feel like you're in that, right? But he plays complex roles, he displays leadership and just the emotional tie-in that, and when you watch him as an actor, you don't feel like nothing's fake. You feel everything real about it. And I think he would be somebody I think, that would play me well. So yeah, I think Wood Harris. Wood Harris.
There we go. All right, last one. Your go-to South Bay eatery and your favorite dish there.
Local Kitchen. I don't know if you heard of Local Kitchen, but it's right there in Old Town Torrance, I would say. I got a couple bartenders over there that I'm really close with. They have everything there is good, but I love the hot wings. I'm a big hot wing guy. The buffalo wings, probably some of the best buffalo wings you'll ever taste, especially down here in SoCal. They're really good. And then I always start with that and then finish with the spicy chicken sandwich, spicy buffalo chicken sandwich. I can't eat a lot of cheese anymore, but I still will sacrifice it on that day because they got some blue cheese crumbles on top of that sandwich with some fries. So that's my place. Local Kitchen. That's your shout out right there. Please go stop in there. Go get you some buffalo wings and a buffalo spicy chicken sandwich.
There we go. That will do it for the episode with Chris Brown. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you very much, sir. And keep working with those quarterbacks.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. God bless. And thank you again for this opportunity. And just thank you.